And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this late edition of Rosen Sports Sunday. Well, as you know, the Vikings had their bye week, and we will check in with radio analyst Pete Bursich in a bit. But first, a remarkable story about a former Viking great wide receiver that is about to come to the big screen. Gene Washington was a first-round pick out of Michigan State in 1967, part of the greatest series of first-round picks in Viking history. Gene was a favorite target of quarterback Joe Kapp, leading the Vikings to their first Super Bowl appearance in '69. But this movie isn't about what Gene Washington did on the field for the Minnesota Vikings. It's about the journey that Gene and many teammates, including running back Clint Jones, took in breaking the color barrier attending Michigan State University in the mid-'60s. We are pleased to have Gene Washington in studio with us tonight. Gene, thanks so much for coming in. Always good to see you, my friend.
Well, thanks, Mark. It's great. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you know, a few years ago, I sat down with you for a segment we were doing for Black History Month with the Minnesota Vikings. Your daughter, Maya, was also there, and she was talking with me about this project that she was working on, a documentary about the success of the first fully integrated college football team at Michigan State entitled To the Banks of the Red Cedar. So here we are. Maya's in Los Angeles finishing the editing and getting closer, we hope, to the release.
Right. Yeah. And we're hopeful for the middle of next year, maybe sooner.
And the title is about?
It's about my migration from Texas.
Yeah.
And at the time, Duffy Daugherty recruited a lot of African-American players from the South. And so it talks about me and my teammates, and it was about 20 of us who all came from the South, and Duffy recruited all of us to play football.
Well, before we go any further, adding to your point, so our audience can really get a sense of what this amazing story is about, let's take a look, our first look at the official trailer, Through the Banks of the Red Cedar.
The Civil Rights Movement was not just about marches and sit-ins and boycotts and protests. It was also about confronting segregation in different spaces. And the Michigan State teams of the 1960s, they confronted segregation on the field, physically. They challenged the color line in numerous ways.
Duffy Daugherty faced criticism. There were people all across America who were watching this and saying, where is this going? Well, it was going to lead to a national champion.
It isn't very often that you can put that many superstars together and have it work, but it worked, and it worked well.
The part that really reflected what this great experiment of Duffy Daugherty's was all about was the National Football League draft. For one school to have the #1, #2, #5, #8 picks, unprecedented.
Step rally. We didn't have one like this when I played in the 60s.
I never really developed an appreciation for football. My dad didn't show me the game. He didn't sit me down in front of the TV and explain how football works.
I wish we could have had the moments that we're having now when I was a kid.
You might have a chance to make up for that.
We had something very powerful, and it did expose me to things that, had I not played, I wouldn't be able to experience.
We wanted to prove to ourselves and to everybody around the country that we could be the best. Without that opportunity, I never would have made it because of the segregation.
When our players meet a guy like Gene Washington, there's a little bit of a feeling of awe. You know, it speaks about their past and the history that they've brought here.
Had it not been for them, we wouldn't be here.
It means the world to me. To know the tradition, the blood, sweat, and tears, the pride that was put into wearing the green and white, the people that sacrificed. And I do appreciate what they endured, because if they would have gave up, then there wouldn't be no us. Now you look at us years later, we're a product of their sacrifice.
The idea of being offered a chance to be a part of a big community, a big family, meant a whole lot.
Just an extraordinary story. We're back with Gene Washington. And why did your daughter Maya want to make this movie? How did it come about?
Well, it came about because Bubba passed away about 4 years ago.
Bubba Smith.
Bubba Smith.
Yeah.
And so she was so impressed with meeting all my teammates, and she was really a part of the whole moment at that time, and something that I hadn't shared a lot with her, but she learned a lot about my career, my background. And so with her background in media arts, if you will, she wanted to do this.
Yeah, you grew up in LaPorte, Texas. You went to high school nearby, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
What options did you and Clint Jones have as far as playing college football? Because you got Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi to Florida. They weren't recruiting or being able to play black players at that time, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I played at Baytown, Texas, which is George Washington Carver. And, for example, Bubba Smith played in Beaumont at Charleston Pollard. And we played against each other in an all-segregated league because we couldn't play with the white players, and we couldn't play on their team, and they couldn't play on ours because of the segregation. So Bubba's father was a football coach, was his football coach. And so Bubba's father and Bubba put in a nice word to Duffy to make sure he added me to the Michigan State's freshman class.
In many respects, what Duffy Doherty did was also done by Murray Warmath here at the University of Minnesota, maybe a bit earlier, but he brought in the likes of Bobby Bell and Carl Eller and Sandy Stevens, the last Gopher team that went to the Rose Bowl. So, yes. And keep in mind, so none of the schools in the South.
That's correct.
They were totally segregated.
That's correct.
When you watch, keep in mind, we're watching them in Alabama and Mississippi, watch every week. Yes. And it's like, it's astonishing to think what's happened and what your choices were. Did you feel resistance at all on campus at Michigan State?
No, everything was very open. Everybody was very welcoming. Yeah. And it was quite an experience, you know, changing from a completely segregated situation to a completely integrated situation. You have to keep in mind also all the public accommodations, the restaurants, all of that was segregated, and so we had to live on one side of the town. We lived on the north side of the town.
Unbelievable.
And so even the housing, and we couldn't even vote back in those days.
And on the football field, you played Notre Dame with Alan Page, and you just told me before he went on the air, he was the lone African-American player on that Notre Dame team.
That's correct.
That classic team. You had 10-10, that Michigan State-Notre Dame game from that year as well. Everybody remembers.
Yeah, that's right. Alan is from Canton, Ohio.
Right.
And, of course, his high school football coach was our coach at Michigan State. He was our freshman coach. But Allen was, as my understanding, was the only black on his particular team.
Extraordinary. He created quite a legacy at Michigan State. I'm sure it is. We saw a little glimpse of that in the video. Nice to hear from players of today who understand what you guys accomplished in the mid-'60s. That's something that must really feel good in the heart.
Yeah, I'm very proud that I had an opportunity. The most important thing was just having an opportunity to play and to go to school, because having a degree from Michigan State and a master's degree from Michigan, that is big time for me, because family-wise, nobody in my family had a chance to do that because of segregation.
It was not that long ago. And keep in mind, if people want to make donations, they are raising money for licensing and distribution fees as they come down the home stretch for this documentary. Go to this website. I think I'll reveal it at the bottom of our screen here. throughthebanksoftheredcedar.com. Again, it's throughthebanksofthecedar.com. All goes according to plan. The movie will be released when? Sometime next year?
Sometime next year, middle to the end of next year.
And this, the name of the title, Through the Banks of the Red Cedar, has to do with Michigan State. Is that correct?
It has to do with Michigan State because there is a river on the banks of the Red Cedar, and that's our fight song. On the banks of the Red Cedar, there's a school that's known to all.
Yeah.
And the specialty is winning. And Spartans play great ball. So that's how
you were singing the fight song. You probably done that a few times.
We had to sing that. We had to sing that before every game and after every game.
Yeah. Listen, I know you have some fond memories of playing with the Minnesota Vikings as well from '67 on, and playing at old Met Stadium. We got some video of that. They didn't throw the ball 40 times like they do today in today's game. You had Dave Osborne and Bill Brown on that backfield. The defense, one of the best of all time, with Page, Eller, Marshall, Larson, Hilgenberg. We could go on and on. What memories come to mind when you look at this video and think about your days with the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, I'm just saying we had a great opportunity to play in the Super Bowl, and Joe Kapp was the quarterback, of course, and just great memories of some great players. We played together. We did a whole lot of things together, and of course, Bud Grant was our leader, and we followed Bud wherever he wanted to take us.
He was as advertised, was he not? What was your first experience like with him? Did you ever remember or call you by name? Because he rarely did that with any of his players.
Well, my first experience, the years I left Michigan State, I was always a winner and the starter, if you will. And then playing with the Vikings that first year, we didn't do too well that first year. We lost a lot of games that first year.
He didn't like playing rookies very much.
I didn't play much.
The Twin Cities has been home all these years for you, hasn't it?
Yes, but we like it here, and my family's here. My daughter's here and their families, and so it's a great place to live.
Well, best of luck with the documentary. Again, you're hopeful of having it come out sometime next year. Your daughter, meanwhile, is working as we speak right now.
Yes.
I was pouring over the editing bay right now, trying to get this done.
Right.
And it's an amazing project, and we wish you the best. We hope to see it out the next year sometime.
Well, hey, thank you very much.
Gene Washington, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, the one and only.